Well, good afternoon, South Florida. Welcome to Unlock Your Momentum with Gio. I am Giovanna, and I am your host. And I am on a mission to create awareness around what keeps us from living the best life that we can, and especially from what holds us from being the best version of ourselves. Now, we've been doing a special series lately, and it's called F Your Fear. That's right. You heard me say it. Now, I can't say the word, but you know exactly what I mean. Now, we've had several guests, but today's guest, first of all, needs no introduction. But on top of that, he does not actually could take us through a journey of fear. And what better way to talk about not just mental fear, but actually physical fear. And honestly, he needs no introduction, but I'll just say he's one of the greatest and a Hall of Famer. So please do me the honor of welcoming Mr. Emmitt Smith. Hello, sir.
Hello, Gio.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Look forward to the conversation.
Thank you. So before I give you a little bit background around what we've been talking about with fear, I was curious about something. Listen, clearly everyone knows who you are. So, silly question. When's the last time you had to introduce yourself?
I introduce myself on a daily basis.
Do you?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm one of those kind of guys that doesn't walk around assuming that everyone knows who I am.
Okay.
And so...
So give me that introduction, by the way.
Yeah, it's like you come up to a restaurant and you have the hostess that's sitting right there, and he's like, "Hello, I'm Emmitt Smith, blase, blase. I have a reservation for this time." Or I see someone coming up, or I see someone at the airlines, and I go up and I say, "Hello, Emmitt Smith, blase, blase," and it just keep going. And so it's just one of those kind of things for me that I just don't take for granted.
Okay.
I don't assume that people know who I am. And it makes, for me, it keeps this humbleness that I need to have as I go through life.
Which is so important, right? Because when we're speaking around fear, there's also another side of that, which is greed. Mm-hmm. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about fear. Now, in the last 3 episodes, you are the 4th guest, so thank you for coming again.
Okay.
And we're kind of attacking fear from different directions. So we first did financial fear.
Okay.
Then we did career fear around the workplace, worried about losing your job if you're not happy. Then we did...
Or having the right job.
That is correct, in alignment with your purpose. So we did get a little bit into that. Then the third one was around where does fear start, which is with our kids. So we had a parenting coach come in. But now fear from an athlete is a whole different story.
Right.
It's mental and physical.
Correct.
Now, before we get into it, and I ask you, what are your thoughts when you think of just the word fear? Mm-hmm. One of the common fears that we hear a lot is, first of all, fear is a mask. And the common fears that we hear behind that is that it's really about not being enough.
Right.
Or the fear of change, the fear of being, due for a setback.
Right.
It could be on missing out on something better, making the wrong decision, what people think. So fear really is just the mask to really what is behind it.
Correct.
So when you think of fear, what comes to mind?
Whew. I mean, you just said a whole mouthful of just adjectives that would just describe fear in a comprehensive point of view. But as an athlete, some of the biggest fears that most of us have is injury. And the type of injury.
Okay.
More so than anything. Broken bones, broken legs, knees, et cetera, things like that that can truly set you back or even take your career completely off course. Those are some of the bigger fears. Fears have been injured on the field to where you cannot get off. I mean, to me, watching Damar Hamlin last year as a football player gave me this level of fear, like, oh my gosh, I've never seen this before. And not knowing whether or not this kid would actually survive or even come out of it. So there was a level of fear for me just watching my sport. But as a player, yes, you had these things that was in your mind in terms of injury, the type of injury. And you've seen some of those things occur on the football field. You just pray and hope that it didn't happen to you. And for me, fortunately, some of those things did not happen. Did I get hurt? Yes. Did I have broken bones? Yes. Broken hand, separated shoulder, bone spurs in my ankle, had to have surgery on my ankle, had to have surgery on my hand, had to have surgery on my shoulder. So those things occurred. But far as my legs, the things that I needed the most, I was blessed with some grace and mercy not to have that type of knee injury or leg injury that would cripple me or set me back that far.
Yeah.
And so, but, that is this. You don't want to talk about it. You don't want to think about it, but it does exist in one's mind.
Of course. And so there's a process, which I believe that athletes think a little bit differently, right? Because, of course, we do have to use our bodies in the sport and whatever we're playing. So walk me through a process of after you've experienced injury and a little bit of how do you let go and how much faith is also involved in trusting your abilities. Because if you, again, fear will hold you back from your true athletic abilities and talents.
Right.
If you let it.
I agree 100%. Fear is the one thing that can paralyze anybody or any person. And it's the one thing that would keep you from getting in the game and participating in the game. There's a lot of armchair quarterbacks. Every Monday morning, somebody's on the airways talking about what the Dolphins could have did, or the Hurricanes could have did, or the Gators could have did, or the Cowboys could have did, or should have done with the offensive coordinator. Everybody's talking about those things. But what I've come to learn is if you're not in the game, your voice doesn't matter. Until you get into the arena and feel the pressure of what it's like to be in the arena, then I will listen to you. Outside of that, you're just a sideline person that doesn't know what goes into the game. You may have had a level of experience through high school. You may have even made it all the way through college, but you never made it to the pros. And you don't know whether or not these guys, what kind of work these guys are actually putting in order to be and participate at the level that they need to participate every Sunday on a consistent basis. Now, with that said, as I said, fear will paralyze you, no doubt.
Without a doubt.
And I think every athlete had to go through different levels of fear to overcome. For me, I think the very first time I really got hit by a guy, I was 10 years old and he was 12. And I had to play with the 12-year-old guys because I was too big to play with the 9 and 10. So my very first day of practice, as a 10-year-old playing with 11, 12-year-old guys, I had to go through this drill, what they call the Oklahoma drill. And I had to run between the tires. Billy Spriggs was this big white kid over there, was 12 years old, and I'm 10 years old. He and I collide at the tires. He hits me so daggone hard. I'm staggering around. I think I had my very first concussion that went undiagnosed. And the coaches are jumping around, patting him on the back of his helmet and patting me on the back of my helmet. And for the first time I got hit, and for the first time I actually thought about not playing the game of football. But I'm so grateful that they put me right back in the game, right back in and asked me to do it again. Even though I didn't want to do it again, but they kind of forced me to do it again. And so tears rolling, I'm about to cry. They say, Hut, I don't have time to think. All I got to do is react and respond. And Billy's coming at me, and I'm coming at Billy. He comes that get closer to me. I sidestep him, stay in between the tires. He fall flat on his face. I take off running for a touchdown, and I understood what it really meant to avoid contact at all costs at that time. And from that point on, I just started trying to avoid contact and make people miss. So developing a skill set to just give you part of my body, not the whole body. And so developing things to overcome that. So I overcame that particular fear and started to develop a different skill set. And as I gotten older, I had to adjust every level.
Yeah.
So high school, become a little bit differently. Getting into college, making guys miss, making guys look silly on the football field. Because people say, oh, he has the skill set, but yeah, you have to develop that skill set. The process of being able to create the timing and the shiftness and the elusiveness that you need to make people miss and develop that skill set is what I was able to develop as I got better and bigger, stronger and faster. And I also learned through the process, when the spirit of intimidation can come in sizes, different sizes, shapes and forms. Everybody on the football field, no matter how big they are, they may not be that mean of a person.
Yeah.
They may not be that aggressive of a person.
Yeah.
So you have to learn that the bigger they are, the harder they fall. Or the bigger they are, maybe the slower they are. So, and you also learn that the game is about leverage.
Yeah.
And being a 5'9" guy going up against a 6'3", 6'4" guy, or a 200-pounder or 300-pounder or 250-pounder, that's not an easy thing to do, but you learn that, leverage does matter. And so I'm not going to run in there and beat my head up against a 245, 255-pound linebacker coming at me straight down. I got to figure out other ways to defend myself.
Of course.
But you learn that.
Of course.
And so
you develop that mental skill of adjustment.
You make that adjustment. And for some people, adjustments can be very tough and very hard because as we just come through the pandemic,
it's the change.
It's the change of your normalcy or things that you normally would not do. That change itself can be very scary.
Of course.
Because no one knows what's on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And for us, we know as an athlete, we know, well, we start over here. We go 80 yards. We're going to punch that thing in the end zone. And on the other side, once we get in the end zone, it's 7 points.
It's a little more calculated.
It's a little bit more calculated. Yeah. Well, we go 90 yards and don't score, well, we got to settle for a field goal. That can be a problem in the end of the game. But we know that there's always a method to the madness. We always know that there's an end to something. And you start something, you must finish it, no matter what happens. And you know that along the way, life, the game, is going to deal you some challenges that you're going to have to learn how to overcome. And you're going to have to make adjustments along the way because there's no such thing as a straight line to success.
Agree 100%. And so you talked a lot about being an athlete, but post-athletics, how has fear changed for you?
It has changed. How about being a parent?
Oh, well, yeah.
Itself.
Yeah.
Seeing things with your kids before it actually happened. Now you understand what it was like to be a son or a daughter when you have your own kids. Because you see things that they're doing that could be dangerous. Whereas before you was the child that was doing dangerous things and didn't even realize how dangerous it actually was.
Yeah. In mentioning being a parent, I was told before I became a parent that your mind would never be the same, that your mind would never rest like it used to rest.
Right.
Until you had kids, that's it. It changed. And I didn't understand that concept until I had children as well. It's just a different thought. And you're right, I do carry a certain fear. But as a parent, I've had series with kids before of parents don't understand. And I actually asked the kids, why are parents so embarrassing? And they said, because they don't allow us to make our own mistakes.
Right.
And I said, okay, understandable. They said,
which is true.
Yeah, they want their sense of freedom, but you're right.
They want their sense of freedom, but are they willing to take on the responsibility of their sense of freedom?
Yeah.
Most kids may not want the responsibility that comes along with that sense of freedom. And as a parent, we have to learn to allow them to fail. But what we don't want them to do is fail so miserably to where they cannot pick themselves back up again. Because kids today are a little bit more fragile than most, than what we used to be. Maybe it's because we held everything in and didn't have that outlet to go and talk to somebody to help us release it.
Yeah.
So we carried that burden. And we probably still carry certain burdens to this day because of our upbringing. And now kids today are growing up with this sense of freedom to be able to speak freely and to express themselves in such a way to where they're not concerning themselves with the thoughts of others.
Yep, agreed.
And so, but still along the line, there's a level of concern that moms and dads will always have, regardless of the child. Even if you got a 27-year-old, you just want to make sure, and I have this philosophy, no news is good news.
Of course, yeah.
So if I'm not answering the phone call saying, come get me out of this, or come, I need help, or this right here, I got a flat tire, I could deal with a flat tire.
Got it. Understandable. So another word we'll use for fear is scared. And scared can be used differently than fear. So what's Emmitt Smith scared of? Like mice?
The ocean.
Really? Water? Snakes, okay.
Yes.
How about needles?
Yeah.
Like when you get shots at the...
Yeah, I've kind of overcame that fear.
Okay.
I hate shots. I hate them. I hate taking them. But it's like, it's not that big of a deal now. Go ahead and stick the needle in me, draw blood, whatever. I'm good now.
Okay.
But even during COVID, I had to get a couple of shots. I had to,
True.
First one, then I had to get the second one. Then I went and got a booster. So, come on. So, but I think that piece I've gotten over. But snakes.
Okay.
The ocean.
Now, is it being on the ocean or in the water?
In the ocean.
So I have to agree with you. That's one of my little fears as well.
Yeah, in the ocean.
Okay.
Yeah. Snakes.
And is it because you can't see it? Can't see it? Or were you traumatized by Jaws, the movie, like everybody else?
How about a little bit of both?
Okay.
How about a little bit of both? First and foremost, that's a whole lot of water to be drinking.
True, yeah.
Secondly, that's not my natural habitat.
Good point.
What's in that water belongs in the water.
Very good point again.
I'm getting in the water in areas that I'm not supposed to be in.
Yeah.
That's not me. So I'm a land guy. I've resided to being a land guy, and as a football player, I ran on fields. That's my habitat. That out there is something different.
And I have to agree with you on that because we share that concern of the water. I'm with you on that for sure. But on a more serious note, our audience always listen in to see what they can pick up or what they can relate to. And so right now there's a lot of fear in our environment, right? Social media, economics, politics, we're really being influenced by a lot of noise.
Right.
So someone that's out there who has fear, whether it's around their job, their family. So what do you tell them?
Sitting in a place where I'm at, most people would probably say, well, what do you have to fear? You had a great job, you had a successful career, you have all these things, et cetera, et cetera. But I am not exempt from everyday life. I lost my father in February of this year. And that was traumatic. And it was something that my brothers and sisters and I have had to go through, even with the loss of my mom. But now coming to the realization of who's left, and how many have gone. That part is something that I have had to work through, and still is working through to this day. And when I see my kids now and family members, I don't see things the same any longer. And so I value the time that I have with my family a little bit more differently than I did in my past. And so I would say to folks, just because I am Emmitt Smith and so forth and have had levels of success in sports and also even in business, the things that are everyday life things that you go through and some of the emotions that you go through and the disappointments that you go through, the highs and the lows, I have them too.
Yeah.
I just have them on a different level.
Yeah.
And most of my stuff is public knowledge. So when something happens to me, you get to read about it.
Yeah.
You get to talk about it. You get to give your opinion about it.
Yeah.
But when something happens to you, I don't even know who you are.
Yeah.
If I do know you are, then I know a little bit about you. But if I don't, you get to pick yourself up the next day and move on about your business. The only ones that know are the ones that are in your community, the ones that know you.
Yeah.
So it's a little different in that context. And some people say, well, it's the price you have to pay for fame. No, it's not the price of fame. It's the price of you want to be nosy.
Yeah.
You want to be nosy about my life and want to be in my life. And it's not like I grew up and saying, I'm going to expose my whole world to you and this. No, that's not how I grew up.
Yeah.
I grew up with the thought process of trying to take care of my family and doing what I needed to do. And then in the process of growing up, then all of this exposure, I had to learn how to manage. My parents didn't have no clue what this exposure was all about and what they had to deal with, what I had to deal with. Yeah. If they made a mistake, how it would impact my world. If I made a mistake, how it would impact all of my family members' world, including my coaches, including some of my teachers, including some of my friends, because of the mistake that I made. So the burden of carrying the responsibility of so many different people is different than anything I've ever known. And it doesn't put you in a place of comfort. It puts you in a place of more responsibility that you have to manage as well and understand for yourself. And so...
And if you're not careful, right?
Yeah.
That's where fear can sneak up on you when really it doesn't belong there.
That's an area that fear doesn't belong.
Correct.
Because as an individual, you have to ask yourself the question, is this pressure? And if this pressure, is it warranted pressure or is it self-induced pressure? Because pressure from society is not perfect.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, society has more issues than you can possibly freaking imagine. But to try to measure yourself against a world that's constantly changing and people that are very fickle would be the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
It's just not logical because everybody, you mentioned social media, you mentioned politics, you mentioned these things. Everybody's not telling you who they really are.
Never. Exactly.
People are lying to each other.
No, absolutely. And you know what? These are the reasons why I like to have these conversations. And yes, it's unlock your momentum because we want to step into the version of ourself that we want to be and live the life that we want. But I believe in transparency. Again, just a couple months ago or just a couple years, I couldn't sit here in front of you, in front of this camera either. I was deadly afraid. I feared. Now I had to work through that process. And so I am about transparency and sharing to people that, again, they're not alone, right? It's all relative. We all are dealt our cards.
Yes.
Again, you walked into something that you had no idea what it was going to be until, of course, you wrote down those goals on that little piece of paper.
I had to learn throughout the process of how to create my own filtering system for myself.
Yes. Yes.
Filtering.
And I'm sorry. And would it be safe, the filtering system, to also say more of how to regulate?
How to regulate myself,
Okay.
but also how to regulate others through the process of this filtering system.
Yeah.
And how to view people through this belief system that you actually have and this filtering system that you actually have and you created for yourself. How do you see the world? Which lenses are you looking from?
Yeah.
Looking at it from. And so for me, developing that and taking that whole process, no matter where I went, kind of helped alleviate some of the issues that people may deal with on a daily basis. So I would say to anyone out there that's afraid of change, what do you believe in? What is the process that you are establishing around that belief? What other things do you add into that belief system to help you filter things through? Whether it's a new business venture, whether it's people in the process, whether it's family members and so forth. What is your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 checklist?
Yeah,
that
your
you
checks
go
and
through.
balances,
Your check and
exactly.
balances to
Yes.
validate some of these things. But it's not just, I'm gonna make an emotional decision to do this. I'm gonna do this because I feel good.
Yeah.
Because you shouldn't always go by your feelings, because your feelings come and go.
Yep.
Some days you feel like a nut, some days you don't. I'm not a hum and joy kind of guy, but I tell you what, that's just the way things are. And so for me, it's having this belief system and having the experience of being around and having some ups, some downs, some successes, some failures, and so forth throughout my whole entire life, because my life has not been perfect.
Yeah.
But I've strived, I've overcame, I've gone through some things that you may not see on the surface, but even behind the scenes, going through them have also prepared me for where I'm going.
Exactly. And I think that you just really identified the foundation, which is your belief system. That's really where it starts.
Yeah.
Go back and check in on it as often. Make sure that's in alignment with what we want, where you're headed.
Right.
Right. It's definitely. I'm about simplicity, the basics.
Right.
Don't forget about those things. Don't get too fancy. Come back home, get grounded.
Kiss.
Exactly.
Keep it simple, stupid. It's just that simple.
That's exactly right. Listen, you are an amazing storyteller. You have so much knowledge and experience. I love to hear you speak because I learn something from you all the time. And I honestly wish that we had more time because we can continue. But I think that you gave us so much value today to just really sit in our own thoughts and think about, what do we fear today? And are we making that up?
Right.
Is it connected to our belief system? Is it time to check in on that? Is it time to reach out, have an outlet? Because we're not alone in this journey, and that is my mission.
That is the key thing right there that you just said. You're not alone in this journey. And for you to feel like you're alone, that means you're not talking to anyone, and no one is talking to you. People are withholding information. And I think in order for us to heal each other from where we once were to where we really truly want to go, if we all are really trying to achieve the right mission for not only ourselves, but also for other human beings and for mankind itself and for this country, we have to be able to not only communicate, but also acknowledge our shortcomings and also to value the opportunities that are before us, to go and achieve it collectively. Because we're not going to get any better unless we really are willing to work to get to come together.
Yes, and by what you just said, I think that I just came up with my next series after we finish fear, because how about we replace fear with love?
Why not?
Why not?
Why
and
not?
let's tell those stories, right?
There's a lot of love stories out there, good ones and bad ones.
That's
so
right.
It's all
That's
good.
right. That's right. So, Emmitt, thank you so much for coming today. I cannot appreciate you more. So grateful for you. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
And we all appreciate it. So, South Florida, Giovanna, unlock your momentum. We'll see you next time. And remember, F your fear. Bye.
Freak your fear.